Hi everybody, welcome and welcome back. My name is Kimiko Sumi and I'm here to do a video today about my experience living in transitional houses, and I want to give a review on them. And for people who don't have a lot of money and they can't get an apartment, so they have to kind of live in transitional houses or sober living houses to have a place to stay. I want to kind of give y'all some tips and kind of give y'all, if you're interested in knowing about what it's like to stay in a transitional house, just want to see and learn more information about it and what other options you have besides a transitional living situation, please keep watching my video. Okay, peace. Now, I know there are a lot of people, like people who are mentally ill that don't have a lot of money, and people who are struggling that may have a part-time job, and they kind of have to, stay at like transitional houses or sober living houses with people that are trying to get off of a chemical dependency or something like that. But you may not necessarily have a chemical dependency yourself. You could be like me, who never had a chemical dependency. I just had a mental illness, and that was more affordable for me to live in a transitional house or a sober living. But I'm gonna give you a heads up on it, some information a little bit about it. If you're not used to transitional houses, but you've been hearing about them, I don't suggest that you live at those houses, to be honest, because there are a lot of drug addicts, when they kind of get their little self-established, they tend to think that they know everything about everything. They kind of think that, they're owed something or owed some type of, excuse me, y'all, or owed some type of, honor or a badge because they've gotten off of drugs or whatever, or their chemical dependency. They feel like they can, run, the show. They may not even necessarily follow the rules of those houses, but they will, they will bully you. If you don't have like a drug problem like them, like I don't, they will bully you. They will try to use you. They will steal your stuff. They might even eat your food, and they might even do something to your food if you leave it in the refrigerator. So you got to be cautious with that, okay? And a lot of them, they end up like relapsing. So you never know if they might run off with your stuff while you're gone or something like that, and then you come back. Because I've seen a lot of people that happen to people. I've seen people's food get eaten, and I don't suggest you bring any food, cook no food there that you're gonna leave leftovers or something, or like even cereal, because they might do something to it. Not only will they could either eat it, or they might try to do something to it if there are no cameras around, okay? Now, if you do choose to go to a transitional house, if you really are on a budget, okay, y'all, I had to cut off the video, but before I left, I was talking about how, if you have to live in a transitional house, no matter what your financial situation is, because there are all types of people that live in transitional houses, but it's mainly like people who have been on drugs or had a chemical dependency or something like that. But I would be very cautious. You should probably look at it as a very temporary thing. If I were you, I would only really go into that situation to only stay there for at the most 3 months, okay? Now, I will warn you, a lot of those transitional houses, in them sober livings, they actually will still be doing drugs there a lot of the time. You may, occasionally get a house where it's very strict, and it's, what is it called? It's, what is that word called? It's strict. It's a strict, it's a word that you call it, where people they have to follow the rules. They have to follow strict rules. Okay, it's structured. Okay, so there are some of these sober houses and they usually are in a nice neighborhood. You would probably have to pay more to live there. Like when I stayed in Covina, California, it was a very nice house, but it was very structured. We had cleaning duties. We had strict codes about no drugs and stuff like that. We had to go to meetings. We had to always be outside the house until it was nighttime. We couldn't be at the house in the daytime. It was just a very nice environment. The home itself was very nice. And I'm pretty sure that it was probably $500,000 in that house. Like that house was probably worth $500,000 because it was in California in San Gabriel Valley, and it was in a very nice part of town. I mean, a very nice part of LA, like the suburbs. Okay, so anyway, usually you can't find a lot of transitional houses and sober livings like that are a very nice, structured place to live. So, but you got to be very careful. But I will say the higher amount that you can pay, that you can manage to pay to stay in a transitional house, the better and more structured it would be. Okay, so if before you go into that situation, if you just absolutely have no choice but to go to a sober living, shared home, or whatever, if I were you, I would really take a tour of it before you decide. I would take a deep look at people who lives there. I would, ask a lot of questions, write down questions, and ask the person, like the owner of the house or whoever it is, to tell you everything you need to know about the people that stay there and the rules and the criteria, because you do not want to end up in these houses that they might be, what is it called? They might be, cheap, and they might be, a little bit more, but you don't want to end up in a house where they don't really care if the people are, because it's a lot of them houses where they actually will still do drugs. It'll actually be a lot of drug addicts there, and they will actually still be doing it because nobody really cares. The cheaper the place is, the worse it is in a transitional house, usually, okay? So I would rather you go, if you don't want to be on drugs, if you don't want to live with people who that are sober, that are actually sober, if you don't want to live with people who are not sober, I suggest you make sure that it's a lot of money that you would have to invest into living in a better transitional house. But I will say, if you absolutely do not want to live in a transitional house, there are other things. Like here in Texas, we have pad split. Pad split is where the rules are strict. You have your own room. You don't have to share it. And it goes by your budget. However you're able to pay, they will go by how much, you're able to afford. Like your income and stuff like that. You have to show your income and whatnot to get them to calculate how much that you're supposed to pay to live in a pad split. And you can live in very nice homes. You can have your own room. You can lock your door. You can have a key to get in and out of the door. There are absolutely no drugs permitted there. And you won't feel obligated to a house meeting or anything like that. It won't have nothing to do with drugs with a pad split. And they do check your background. So that's another thing too. Then, you could also do an Airbnb at times. Like you can find Airbnbs where you could actually stay there month to month, and you won't have to sign any type of contract, and you won't have to, they will kind of do a background check too. Like they might ask for your social media, pages and stuff to make sure that they'll kind of examine you on social media, okay? And they will, see if you're the right fit to stay in those homes. And they are a little bit more expensive, and you will have roommates, and you might even have to share a room with like 3 or 4 other people too, but there are strict rules to living in Airbnbs too. And you got to make sure that they'll allow you to stay for a long period of time. But they also you could also find roommates on roommates.com and different things like that, I don't know if there are any other places that you could go if you don't have a lot of money, but you don't want to stay in a transitional house. But the only thing I can think of are pad splits, Airbnbs, and making sure that you get a top tier transitional house or a sober living. I say be very careful with those sober living places, because you know what, it might be cheap, but you might be paying more with dangerous people sleeping around you and living around you, and it will defeat the purpose of even having a place to stay in the first place. You almost would be better off on the damn street sometimes, because those people living, congregating together, and you don't know who they are or whatnot. Just because it's cheap doesn't mean it's good, okay? And just because something is expensive doesn't mean that, it's better to pick cheap over quality. Pick quality over the price of it. Always pick quality if it's a transitional house or a sober living, because them people are wild. I'm telling you, y'all. you don't want to end up in those transitional houses, because a lot of them too, the ones that are on the low end of the rent spectrum, a lot of them are dirty. They have rats, they have roaches, okay? They have sketchy people coming in and out of them houses. And I wouldn't never, if you're a female, never live in a house with other men. Never live in a co-ed house that's a transitional house or shared living. Never do that. Now, if it's a pad split or Airbnb, and sometimes you could kind of go to one of them backpack hotels where it's a lot of, you would actually have to prove your background with those too. But like in California, they have the ones where there are bunk beds in the room, and it's very nice, and you can have your own privacy in the bunk bed. I can't think of the name of those places, but I will Google it and I will list it, okay? So this is basically my video, enlightening y'all on your options, and what to avoid and what to look for when you don't have a lot of money, and you might have evictions, and so your only choice would be to live with other people. This is just a warning, and this is just like some of the things that I've learned throughout the years, as somebody who has not had a lot of money but still needed a place to stay. Okay, so if you like my video, please hit like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell if you like, and I will see y'all in another video, my lotus flowers. And I hope y'all have an amazing rest of the day, and I will too, and I will see y'all in another one. Peace. I'm out. Bye bye.